Hello everyone, welcome to another video from 3D Box channel. My name is Mehdi and after a long break, we are back with a new series of tutorial inside Substance Painter with a lot of extension. In this tutorial, we are focusing on a woven basket, which comes from our latest product that you can find the link of the product inside the description. And during this video, I'm going to explain you how to manage texturing this kind of asset inside the painter from baking phase to the final. And at the end, in the second part of this tutorial, we are going to bring everything from Substance Painter to Unreal Engine, set up the asset inside the Unreal, set up a shader for controlling different part of the model and the textures, and that's it. So be with me in this tutorial and do not forget to subscribe channel and hit the like button and share your mind in the comment section. Before jumping to the video, let me introduce you a great course for learning Substance Painter from zero to hero. Learning Substance Painter is easier than ever. Hey all substance lovers, texture seekers, and awesome future artists. Welcome to ultimate course for learning Substance Painter from zero to hero. Ready to learn how to texture with different projects? Substance Master released a brand new course for those who want to learn to texture with Substance Painter. In this course, we cover from preparing the model to rendering different projects, different challenges. If you want to level up your skill in texturing, come and check the Substance Master Ultimate course for learning Substance Painter. So before jumping to Substance Painter, let me explain something here in the Blender on Lowpoly and Highpoly model. So first of all, this is the Highpoly model, and as you can see, we have different color on the surface and material. And the reason of that is we want to create a mask ID or color ID on Painter for defining different part and make a better and quicker masking in the texturing process. Okay, so it's super simple. You just need to define different material ID on your Highpoly model. This is just only on Highpoly model with different color. That's it. There is no extra thing that you want to do here. Okay, and what's the reason that we have this space between handle and the main body? Why we have something like this? Okay, so for explaining this, let me bring the base and the original Lowpoly model here. So as you can see, we have handle in this position, right? And in here, we can see some intersection area between handle and the main body, as you can see in this area. Okay, so these intersections, they are going to make so many troubles in the baking process from Highpoly to the Lowpoly. We have so many weird things on the normal AO and etc. So for avoiding this kind of situation, we are going to make some space between this intersection area and remove any kind of intersections and just make everything easier in the baking process. And according to this logic, we have the Lowpoly like this and the Highpoly like this. You can even use different methods, for example, like same mesh name for baking process, but believe me, this one is so much easier to avoid any kind of extra work, extra trouble in the baking process, and etc. Okay, that's it. And now it's time to bring both of them to the painter and bake the information from high to low. Okay, now we are in Substance Painter and we should do the same old thing here. File, new, select, and I'm going to use this low model for bake. Okay, and in here ASM is good. We are not going to use the UV tile workflow and we don't need any kind of extra option here. So DirectX 2K is good. This little option here, compute tangent space per fragment, because after this texturing process, I want to bring the model and everything to the Unreal Engine. So this is important to use this one and press OK. And that's it. We have the Lowpoly model here. Okay, let's go to the bake menu. And in this bake menu, I just need to define the Highpoly mesh here in this list. Okay, perfect. And I want to turn on the bend normal just change the output size to the 4K, and as you can see, I just only have one texture set here, so there is no extra option here. Okay, and let's use the latest feature in Substance Painter. In the cage setting, we have an automatic version, which is very experimental, that you can use it, but sometimes it can make some error or bug because it's very new and experimental, so be aware of that. I'm going to use this automatic cage option here, and it's going to calculate my high poly and the low poly, and it's going to create a custom cage in an automatic way, which is very, very awesome. Okay, so in here, I couldn't see any kind of bug, so everything is perfect, and I just need to press the bake button here. So let's do that. And I forgot, I have some opacity information between these sections, so let's turn on the opacity, and that's it. And I'm going to select this button to make baking process start. Okay, now as you can see, the baking process is done, and we have all the information from Highpoly model on the Lowpoly in textures. Okay, so now it's time to work on the texturing process and texturing phase, and we can work on this model with this arrangement. There is no big issue here, but in general, when we want to work on a model during the texturing process, it's very good that we have this chance to see the model from one angle in different mode and positions. Okay, so I'm going to Blender and make a duplicate from the source mesh and put it in different position and transform. And with this arrangement, I can see the back of the model, the inside of the model, and the model itself in default position. So in this way, I can just see everything all around the model from one angle. And this is the huge help when you work on something and when you texture something in Substance Painter, especially when you have a complex model and the lighting situation, the shadow information, the highlight information, it's not super obvious on different part of the texture and the surface that you have in the painter. Okay, so I just duplicate, put it in different position, and just select all of them, go to the file, export, and export all of them under one FX file. And after this step, we come back to the Substance Painter and reload that FX file for texturing into the viewport. Okay, now as you can see, I can click and drag this woven low for texturing, and in this window, I just press OK, and boom, everything just gone, and we couldn't see anything. And the reason of that is the difference between the name of the material when you export the FX file for baking and when you duplicate the source mesh and export for the texturing phase. So in duplicating process, the name of the material just changed to wovenbasket.003, and in the previous file, which for baking, it was 002. So for solving this issue, we need to come back and just make sure all of these meshes have the same material like this. Okay, so 002, 002, 002, and we are ready to go. And I'm going to export it again. And inside the painter, you just need to go to the edit and re-import mesh, and everything just go and fixed. Okay, so I just try to show you the common issue for this workflow and how to solve this. So you have this knowledge and you can apply it on your project. Okay, so now the first step is to create a base layer here, and I'm going to call it base. And as you can see here, we have default channel, color, height, roughness, metallic, and the normal. But we bake opacity here in the baking process, but there is no channel input for this kind of information. So first of all, we need to go to the texture set setting. In the channels, just add opacity here, okay? And after that, we have this power to input any kind of information regarding to the opacity, right? And we need to load the opacity that we bake as a mesh maps in the base layer here. Okay, so let's click on this, search about the opacity and just select this one. Okay, now we have opacity on the channel, but there is no any kind of effect on the surface. And the reason of that is we doesn't allow the shader to process this information. For this step, we need to go to the shader settings, and in here, we just need to enable alpha blending. And as you can see, when I enable it, we can see the effect of the opacity here, like this. That's it. Okay, we are good to go for setting up the viewport setting. So in the display setting, I can change the environment map. So I use Studio Tomoko, which is the best one, I think, in this list. And we can change the focal length to have better perspective for this kind of asset here. And even you can increase the environment opacity to have some information on the background, not just pure black or gray. Perfect. And in most of the case, I just go to the tune mapping and change function to the aces and just increase the environment exposure to 1. Now I have a better viewport for texturing. Okay, perfect. And now it's time to create different folder, different mask to have control in which area, which kind of detail I want to have. Perfect. So let's create some folder. Okay, now I have 4 different folders with 4 different color in each folder. And I'm going to add black mask to all of them. And right now I can go here and choose color selection. And according to this ID map that I baked right now, you can see that. And just select, for example, this one. Okay, in the mask, now I have those area. Let's do that for this part. Okay, perfect. And as you can see, this is the result. And for the L3, let's go and select this part. Perfect. And right now I'm going to select this top element here. So we can select more than one color. Awesome. And as you can see, we have a perfect masking process here in a fast and accurate way. Okay, now let's go for the texturing phase. And it's actually super easy because we create every detail in the model, we bake it here in the painter, and we create mask from what we did in the modeling phase, okay? So in a quick way, we just need to load a wood-based material here. In here, I'm going to use wood rough, and that's it. And I'm going to tweak that in a way that I want, okay? So first of all, the height intensity or the normal intensity in here is too much. And as you can see, the information just comes from the height. So I have 2 options. I can go to the technical parameter and play with the height range like this. Or I can go here into the height layer section and decrease the opacity here, okay? In general, I prefer to change the setting in here in the material because I don't want to receive any kind of information from previous layer. Okay, now it's time to define the tiling value here. So I think 5 or 6, they could be good and great. Yeah, perfect. And we can play with the wood color to achieve the color that we want. But I'm okay with the default one. So I'm going to increase the wood color saturation, color fade, and I'm going to reduce the knot intensity and decrease the cracks amount here. And that's it. So this is my base, and I'm going to duplicate this one, for example, here. Okay, perfect. And I'm going to play with the offset, maybe play with the tiling, and just some small tweak in the color. Okay, perfect. And I'm going to duplicate this one to the L3. But in L3, I need to make some rotation and increase tiling value. Okay, so let's go back here. I'm going to tweak the color of this part like this. And because it's too narrow, I'm going to decrease the veins density. Okay, and increase veins color fade. And again, I'm going to increase the tiling number. Okay, that's great. So I have this arrangement here, and I'm happy with that. Perfect. So let's go and duplicate this one here, and I'm going to call it L4. Let's put it in L4 folder and just remove this one. Perfect. So let's give some rotation to match with the style that we have here. I think this one is great. Okay, that's great, but I'm going to fix the rotation here on this handle. So let's duplicate. I'm going to call it handle. Okay, let's add a black mask, and inside the black mask I'm going to use color selection and just select the color of these handles. Okay, perfect. So let's just change the rotation here. But as you can see, we couldn't apply this layer and replace it with this previous one. Okay, so for solving this kind of issue, the only thing that we need to do is right click on the blending mode. And before that, we need just change it to the normal. Right click on that and choose apply to all channel. So in this way, I can disable all the effects that comes from previous layers. Okay, now it's time to change the rotation according to what we want. And I think this one is great and good. Okay, perfect, perfect. And right now we can change the color in the base material. And I think this value is good. So I'm going to copy that here. Okay, perfect. So we create the base color information, the height information, the normal information, and even the roughness information here. And now it's time to add and modify it. But before that, you can see some white value here. And this is just only for the bug and the issue that we have when we use color selection. So if I change the size of the texture viewport from 2K to the 4K, as you can see, the issue is gone because we have more pixel, more accurate result after creating color mask from bake information. Okay, so if you check that inside the 4K size and you are going to export everything on 4K at the end, so we are good to go, and there is no any kind of extra step to solving this kind of issue. Okay, because we don't have this issue on the 4K size. But for example, you decide to export everything on the 2K. Okay, and what about this? How we are going to solve this kind of issue here? The most common way for solving this issue is using blur, level, or bevel filter. Okay, so let's go to the filter. I'm going to use bevel here. Okay, and for the bevel, I'm going to use some positive value, something like this, or maybe a little higher. Okay, and put this on all mask. And as you can see, there is no error here anymore. Okay, so this is the way that we can solve this kind of issue. But right now, it's not issue. And another thing, so as you can see, it's white value here, right? And this white value just comes from this base layer that we have here. So if I come here, pick a common color here, that can be a solve action. Or we can just go with the black to make everything more clear. Okay, so that's it. And I'm going to decrease the height range for the wood part so we have a better result at the end. Okay, so before continuing anything, as you can see, we have some issue here according to the direction and the flow of the texture. Okay, and the result of that is we have some seams and UV change in the form in this area. Okay, so in here, as you can see, the flow and the direction is right. But in here, we have a seam and we have separate UV island in different form. Here is rectangular and here is circular. Okay, so this is a common issue because if I put it, like super straight on a low poly model, it's going to destroy the texture flow and make some distortion issue, right? But especially when we go and transfer information from high poly to the low poly, it's very important for us to avoid any kind of distortion, because all the information over there is going to be missed or misplaced, right? So how we are going to solve this issue? For example, here we have some other kind of weird issue. The direction here is totally different and the direction here is not follow the same. So maybe you think about this method. Okay, so this is this problem here, and I can go and just change the projection, for example, to triplanar. And it's going to solve some of those issues, but just make another one. So in here, we just totally lost our direction, okay? So how we are going to make this right? Let me just go to the 2D view. And as you can see in the 2D view, we have different and separate UV island, okay? And because I want to fill up the space of the UV space, I just split the long UV island to small chunks. So I can pack them together in one single UV island and use the space in more logical way. Okay, so how we are going to solve this issue? Let's jump back to the Blender. Before doing anything, let's see the UV arrangement here. So I have a UV island here like this, and we have some seam here and in here. And as you can see, for example, these two have the same direction, but here in the inside part, it's going to be in 90 degree against this one, okay? So this is the issue that we have, and for saving pixels on the texture, there is no way instead of splitting UV chunks to the smaller one to avoid some kind of huge gap in the UV shed, right? But in Substance Painter, we have another method to solve this issue in very easy mode, okay? So this is the UV map number one, the layout, the first layout that we are going to use it for Substance Painter, bake information from Highpoly to the Lowpoly, bring it to the Unreal Engine, and etc. Okay? And we can have multiple UV channel here, right? So let's go here and just select the UV number 2. So as you can see, the whole arrangement in UV channel number 2 or 3 or 4 or anything else, there's no depends on the name. I'm using UV channel number 2 because I don't have UV channel number 2 for another purpose, okay? So in other UV channel, if I come here and select all the surface, as you can see, we have a perfect UV, a solid one without any extra seam, with the same direction, and everything is okay, right? So extra UV channel just only for this purpose. And even you can just apply the textile density number here to have the same scale on different object in the color or matching up any kind of detail here according to the textile density. Okay, so I have two different UV map. First, for baking and avoiding any kind of distortion, stretch, or avoiding any kind of, a big gap in the UV layout. And the second one, just for the sake of the textile density, direction, flow, and etc. Okay, and even they are not in the same size, it's so much smaller. Okay, so even I can come here and make it bigger compared to the UV space border. Okay, so let's jump back to the painter. In the painter, when you have something like a model that we have here, and it has two different UV channel, one for baking, texturing, and etc., one for as a guidance for direction, flow, scale, or something like this, you can come to the UV projection, use the UV set, and just change the source from 0 to 1, okay? And as you can see, there is no issue here for the direction like this. So everything is on the right one. I just need to change the rotation to the 90, and as you can see, there is no any kind of mismatch in direction here. Okay, super easy. The only thing that you need to know is you need to define this UV channel before bringing your object into the painter. It's recommended like this. So you just need to create UV channel before bringing it to the Substance Painter and bake all the information from high to low. Okay, that's it. Okay, now I just change the color for different part and make it like this, and I'm happy with the result. And now it's time to just add some details and some other information like extra AO dirt, color breakup, and we are done in the texturing process. Okay, so the next step is going to texture set setting and add ambient occlusion channel here. And we are going to add this channel to our project because in this material, we can have extra AO information on the surface. Let's go to the AO channel, okay? And as you can see, we have extra AO information regarding to this channel. Okay, perfect. So outside of this folder structure here, I'm going to add a fill layer and I'm going to name it dark AO and just make everything to the black. But this super black, it's not right, and sometimes it can make everything just worse. So let's bring it up a little. Okay, that's perfect. And we need some roughness information here because we are going to mimic the dark area inside the patterns. I'm just going to bring up the roughness value to something like 0.8, like this. And let's add a black mask, add a generator here, and I'm going to use ambient occlusion generator. Okay, everything is fine, but we need to invert the mask here. So we can play with the global balance, and as you can see, we have this more depth effect on the surface. Okay, perfect, and we can control the opacity here with this slider, like this, for example. Yeah, I think this 80% is so much better than the full one. Okay, and now I'm going to add more extra detail on the edges. So let's add another fill layer. I'm going to call it edge effect. And it's going to apply in a global way, not just in different amount in each layer. Because of that, I just put the layer after the folder in structure. Okay, so let's add a generator here, choose metal edge, perfect. And I'm going to decrease grunge amount and maybe decrease the wear level too. Okay, perfect. So right now we have a generic and computer look effect on the edge. So let's fix that by adding a fill layer here and choose one of the grunges here. For example, I'm going to choose this one. Okay, so let's bring up the tiling or maybe even more. Perfect. And I'm going to change the blending mode to subtract. So before subtracting the grunge map number 3 from the metal edge wear result, and this is the after result, which is more natural and it's so much better. Okay, perfect. And let's say that here. And right now we can increase some wear level, perfect, and maybe increase some grunge amount. So we have more wide and natural result here. Okay, so let's go back to the layer itself, and I'm going to put it on pure white, change the blending mode to soft light. Okay, so we have a slightly lighter value of the color, and let's go to the height, and I'm going to make it a -1. Okay, perfect. So we have some edge wear here, and for example, you want to have some more extra storytelling element here, so you can add some paint here, put it on linear dodge, choose one of the brushes here, and after that you can paint on the surface like this, and you can make it more natural like this effect here. Okay, and with adding this big element on the surface, you just break up the computer look and it can be more and more interesting. Okay, like this, for example. Perfect. So before paint and after paint, in here we can see the difference. And even we can add another fill layer with another grunge, for example, this grunge, and play with that like this. I'm going to change that. It's not a good option. Yeah, I think this one is so much better. Okay, let's go and increase tiling. we have so much interesting detail. Increase the contrast, decrease the balance here. Okay, we can play with the tiling, for example, or simply we can just change the blending mode to linear dodge, make it a little bigger, play with the balance, and yeah, this is the result. So even I can go here and decrease the opacity of this specific layer, and as you can see, these are the storytelling element here, and we can add more depth to that like this. Okay, perfect. And even we can decrease the opacity of the soft light effect, and we have more natural effect here. That's fantastic. Okay, so we can go here and just add another fill layer like color breakup, and I'm going to choose the dark value here. Let's go and add a black mask, add a fill, just use, for example, some leak grunge like this one. Okay, and change the projection to UV set. Put it on UV set number 1 because we want to have some flow and same direction for this grunge all around the surface. Okay, perfect. Let's go for 90 degree, and we can increase tiling to something like this. Okay, and we can play with some parameter here to make it more unique, and just change the blending mode, for example, to multiply, and play with this opacity value. Okay, so this is before dirt and this is after dirt. Okay, so even I can come here, add a color selection, choose, for example, this part, and subtract it. Okay, so we can add more depth and make it more complex and add more detail on the mask, because this is the same result whenever you go to the Substance Painter, use fill layer and just a simple grunge. Okay, but with this one you can create a different storytelling elements, or you can create depth on your mask. Okay, and even you can come here, add another fill layer, okay, and choose, for example, BMW spot, okay, and multiply it to the grunge. So even on this grunge, which is had different depth and grayscale value, you can add more depth to that, and you can control it with this opacity, and you can play with this balance too. You can just choose different scale, disorder, contrast, and etc. Okay, or even you can use subtract again and make it like this. Okay, perfect. So from this, a uniform looking color breakup mask, first we add more depth, and second we add more detail to that, which is totally controllable. So you can control it. For example, yeah, I like this one. Okay, so let's go for that. And that's it. So you can add more and more detail on this. So let's go and add something else. Okay, so for example, in here we couldn't see, the space or line between these elements here. So let's go back to the L4. Okay, and I'm going to add a fill layer, and let's call it depth. And we just keep the white color here for better definition after what we are going to do in the mask. So let's add black mask here. And I'm just going to add curvature as a generator here to this mask. And as you can see, this is the result. So if I invert everything and just play with the balance and the contrast here, I can define the edge between each section here, right? So as you can see, we have something like this. So let's pick height and let's put it on negative value, and let's add color and make it dark. Okay, so right now we have more depth here, but as you can see, it's like we have so many noisy effect on this particular area. Okay, so let's go back to the edge effect, and I'm going to add a paint layer on top of this, put it on subtract, and just remove this area that can make some noisy result. Okay, and this is the way that we can control the result of the generator, grunges, and etc. Or I can even add some extra detail here for creating more cleaner result here, like this. Okay, perfect. So in this way, I can control the noise on the surface like this. And remember, we are working on 2K, and if this asset just need 2K, and this result is super awesome for that. Okay, that's it. So let's add effect layer here, change the blending mode to pass through, and add filter like sharpen. Okay, and I'm going to put this one on 0.5, and this is the difference between without sharpen and after sharpen. Okay, and I'm going to add another filter here, which is contrast. Okay, and make everything a little contrasty. And remember, for contrast, you just need to keep the color. Okay, so I just play with the brightness and the contrast, and we are good to go. Perfect. So let's go back here in edge effect. I'm thinking about just removing all the noise here. And yeah, I think without those white spots on this top, it's so much better. Okay, that's perfect. So we have so many handmade detail here. We can add even more, but it depends on your time and your reference for adding those kind of detail. I think the sharpen is a little too strong, so make it more or less, and just let's keep it on the color, just only on the color. Okay. So the only thing that we can do is we can go into different L folder, for example, this L3, and I can add fill layer, and let's call it color breakup or color var. Just make it a little brownish like this, and just add a black mask, go to the fill, and choose one of these grunges. So let's bring up the balance. Okay, I'm just change this grayscale to paper ripped, or we can switch to grunge plaster paint, and this is the result. So I can just decrease the value here, or we can just, you know, make it a little darker. Let's go back to the grunge itself. So I add just a great color breakup here. That's it. And let's go to the L2, for example, here. And I'm going to add another fill layer, color var. And let's just switch to something like this. And after that, let's add a black mask again, go to the fill, and use another grunge here. So for example, this wood heart can be good because we have wood surface, but we need to change it to UV set number 1, change the direction, for example, to 90 degree. But as far as I can see, yeah, we need to go back to the 0 in the rotation. Perfect. And even I can go, you know, more darker. And let's go back to the mask. Okay, we can increase styling, increase balance, contrast, and yeah, some details here. And even I can enable roughness, and even we can enable the height to make it more, you know, in-depth detail. But for now, I think the color and the roughness is enough. And for the L1, let's add another fill layer. Okay, color var, and the white is, I think, okay. So let's change it to the soft light. Okay, we have a nice variation here. So let's add a black mask, add a generator, for example, and add some dirt here. Okay, so with the dirt generator, as you can see, we have a good color variation here on the surface. Perfect. And I can add another fill layer and choose a grunge map. I'm going to change the projection to triplanar because the overall direction and the flow is nothing that I need to worry about in this masking. So yeah, perfect. And let's bring up or bring down the opacity here for the soft light. Perfect. And for the roughness, okay, let's make it more roughy. Or I can go with the dark value here and play with the opacity. Yeah, I think it's so much better with the dark value. Perfect. So we are done for the texturing phase. I think it's enough for this kind of asset. And yeah, as you can see, we have color channel, which is good and detailed. We have roughness, it's okay. And we have height plus normal, which is in a good condition here. Okay, that's perfect. And we are done in texturing phase. And the next step is bring everything from Painter to Unreal Engine and make it like this. This is a game asset, so we need to set up this asset inside the game like that. And we have some interesting shader creation here that allows us to control some parameter inside Unreal directly. So if you want to have this part of tutorial and the project files, you can go to the Patreon channel. The link is on the description. And do not forget to subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, and like this video if you learned something new. And share your mind in the comment section. Be creative, be safe, bye.